The president makes his arrival. Now to the House vote to repeal Obamacare. I'm joined right now by U.S. Congressman Amy Bera, of course, Democrat of California, and a physician himself. Also, Steve Ratner, who is an economic advisor to President Obama. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Congressman, what does this mean, this vote? I noticed that Republicans squeaked it today. They only had one extra vote. Obviously, there's 20 Republicans didn't want to vote for it, and a lot more would like to have not voted for it. How did you see it as a political move today?
Yeah, it suggests to me, as a doctor, a lot of them knew this was a bad bill that's going to hurt a lot of patients and a lot of their own constituents. So there was a lot of arm twisting going on. This was a bad vote. Again, it's going to hurt a lot of patients.
When you're down on the floor, could you tell the pressure on those Republicans to get up to that 217?
Yeah, they didn't have that look of enthusiasm on their face, particularly this week as you saw them trying to twist arms and whip the vote here. So, again, I think a lot of them know this was a very difficult vote that's going to hurt a lot of their own constituents.
Let me go down to Steve. Steve, I understand you've got a really good analysis of who are the winners and losers, to put it bluntly, under this bill.
Well, I don't think there are a lot of winners. I think there are a fair number of losers. And first of all, let's go back to the original bill, which included massive cuts in Medicaid, massive cuts in subsidies for people who are above the Medicaid level but not really able to pay for themselves. And then the new bill added to that the ability of states to get out of the 10 basic requirements, as well as to get out of the requirement that insurers charge people with pre-existing conditions the same as people without them. So I can't think of many winners. There are a lot of losers.
Well, here's a chart put out by the Center for American Progress, a progressive think tank. It shows how much more a year some with certain preconditions, existing conditions, might have to pay compared to a healthy 40-year-old person. For example, someone with metastatic cancer would pay more than $140,000 a year. Someone with depression would pay an extra $8,500, $8,500. Someone with asthma would pay more than $4,000 more. And I think also diabetes is about $5,000, which matters to me. Doctor, these are real differences. In other words, they'd be throwing those people into a high-risk pool where they'd have to pay a lot more.
Yeah, and we've tried high-risk pools before, and they never work. What ends up happening is folks can't get the health care that they need. They end up on waiting lists. How do you tell someone with cancer, oh, you've got to go on a waiting list? That's why we took the approach we did with the Affordable Care Act, guaranteeing coverage. And as Steve said, this is going to take health care away or make it unaffordable for millions of Americans.
Well, what about, I want to ask you then, I'll go to Steve, this idea that for $8 billion, which seems a lot of money, but it's over 5 years, which is $1.5 billion a year. They say that they've put, I think it is a Band-Aid they put on this bill. So a week ago or 2 weeks ago, this bill would never pay. Didn't cover pre-existing condition. They put the Band-Aid on and said, yeah, we know that, but we're going to have this subsidy. Talk about socialized medicine. We're going to just write a check from the federal government to cover those people. But nobody believes the $1.5 billion a year will cover all the people in this country's health insurance costs, medicines, pills, doctors, hospitalization. All that's going to be covered for about $1.5 billion a year. Nobody believes that.
I don't know any healthcare expert or economist that believes that. That's a drop in the bucket for what's needed. And I bet Steve would
Steve, let's go along with that number, because it looked to me like a palliative, as a doctor might say.
Yeah, let me put some numbers around this for you, Chris. It's estimated that it would cost anywhere from $200 billion to $330 billion to provide these high-risk pools that are adequate to cover everybody. The House bill included, before the $8 billion, included $130 billion toward a variety of things, that being one of them. Then $8 billion was added. The point is that they're up to $200 billion short of what would be needed to make sure that everybody in the high-risk category with the pre-existing conditions got coverage. So the $8 billion is, as you surmised, a complete drop in the bucket.
I could tell that because I saw the analysis of what had been spent before to cover these high-risk patients. Anyway, the bill's sure to face a tougher challenge when you hit to the Senate. Watch this. Senator Lindsey Graham tweeted today, a bill finalized yesterday has not been scored. Amendments not allowed. 3 hours final debate. Should be viewed with caution. And here's Senator Bob Corker this morning.
Is there any chance, if it passes the House today, is there any chance for an up or down vote in the Senate on the bill as written to get it quickly passed and move quickly past the issue for Republicans?
No.
Zero.
I love talking. Look, that's not the way it's going to work. People are going to want to improve it. I don't see any way that it goes back in the form that it comes.
Well, you know, Congressman, here's the problem if you're a Republican at the White House. These lobbyists trying to get this through. You know, you passed this with one vote to spare. You know how you had to beg the Freedom Caucus people? They were pretty happy with this. You had to take the moderate Republicans from a lot of vulnerable seats in Pennsylvania, like Barletta, who's going to run against Bob Casey for the Senate. A lot of these guys now face real problems. So you squeeze. Now, having said to them, this is as bad as it's going to get. You take it over to the Senate. The Senate's much less right-wing. And the bill comes back, and you got to make them swallow more crap, basically. This is going to be a hard vote to get through.
Absolutely. And, you know, as you saw, it's going to have ramifications in 2018. I mean,
if it passes.
If it passes.
Well, actually, what happens if your colleagues who are Republicans get stranded having voted for a bill that doesn't go anywhere?
Well, they voted for a bill, so we know where their priorities are.
Yeah.
And everyone has patients in their districts. This has taken health care away from millions of folks. You know, in California, there's vulnerable Democrats that, you know, have, you know, over 100,000 folks that could lose health care coverage. How do you go back home and explain that? If they thought town halls were pretty heated before, wait until you go home next week.
Anyway, thank you so much. Great to have you on, Congressman.